Playoffs? You want to talk about playoffs? What's up? I'm Dustin. This is Nameco. And the fantasy playoffs have arrived. You gotta love this time of year. Before we get into some tips and advice for you, a quick shout out to Brock out in Illinois. He was our weekly pick'em winner. Congratulations. Shirt will be in the mail shortly. But this time of year, if you got some injured guys on your team, it's kind of tricky knowing what to do with them. Couple of big name running backs. Brent, what do you do with Forte and McFadden right now?
This is tough. We've been getting a lot of these questions in the forums. Here's the deal. If you're in a league where you can only carry X amount of running backs, or you got a really shallow bench, only a couple people on it, and you need to cut one, you might as well go ahead and do it. I mean, I don't see Forte coming back anytime soon. They said a minimum of 2 weeks, and I think with his contract's up, you know what, he probably is going to be a little bit selfish, and he's going to make sure he's ready to play before he comes back. And with McFadden, he's probably going to be out again this week. Even when he does come back, Bush has been playing so well. At best, it's going to be a timeshare, so you know, avoid at all costs if you don't have to cut them. But if you're in a situation where, you know, one of them are clearly hurt, so you're going to need to replace them if need be, you know what? Cut the cord. It's disappointing, but you know, you just got to do what you got to do at this point in the season. And Dustin, on the flip side of that, Miles Austin's coming back, so got a wide receiver, LaRon Robinson. What are you going to do with him at this point?
I mean, I don't think you can drop him just yet. I don't think you should start him this week because I do think Austin will get thrown back into the starting lineup. I mean, before Austin got hurt, I know it was only 2 games, but he was a top 3 wide receiver. And, you know, that Austin has already come back once and got hurt, so there's obviously the chance of that happening again. So I would hold on to him for at least 1 week just to see what happens with Austin. But if Austin goes back to his old self, I think at that point it's probably okay to drop Robinson. I know it's sad, he's been playing great, but we're talking about Miles Austin here. The guy's pretty
clearly
good at
better.
football. All right, let's get into our forum questions. First one comes from Enclavio. I think that's right. Touchdown only league. We got Benson versus Houston, Marion Barber at Denver, or Deshaun Jackson at Miami.
Deshaun's out. Anytime it's a TD only league, if there's anything ever close, I'll always throw out the wide receiver, plus Deshaun's being a big baby at this point anyway. So then I'm down to Benson and Barber. And out of the two, I'm going to go with Barber. You know, I think he's obviously going to get more touches. Clearly, if they're in the red zone, he's going to be the guy getting the ball out there. I just think he has a better chance to score this week playing against that Denver defense than Benson against the Houston defense. Both pretty solid, but Houston's definitely been better thus far this season. All right, Dustin from MDY18, he wants to know which RB to start, and that's Halou versus New England, your boy. When it counts the most, isn't that what you would always say? Or McGahee versus the Bears.
I mean, obviously McGahee's been playing great. He's really found his niche out there in Denver, playing awesome. But I don't think you can pass up the upside of Halou this week. I know the Redskins are going to be playing from behind, but that's actually where I like Halou the most. Defense backs up a little bit. They just dump it off to Halou. I'm thinking maybe even 7 catches this week for Halou. I know that might be a stretch, but
it's possible.
It's very possible. Even not even, you know, he's going to rack up a lot of receiving yards, so it doesn't even necessarily have to be a PPR league for him to have value. I'm going Halou on this one. I think the upside's too high. All right, Brent, we got one from Desit Huggin. Which running back? We got Beanie Wells versus San Francisco, Marion Barber again at Denver, or Steven Jackson at Seattle.
Here's the deal. You know, first of all, Wells is out. San Francisco still yet to allow a rushing touchdown this season. Absolutely ridiculous. So I'm between Barber and Jackson here, and out of the two, I'm going to go with Jackson on Monday night. Even though Seattle's got a pretty good run defense, you know, the quarterback, Bradford's probably going to be out. Feely might even be out for them, so clearly they're going to lean on Jackson quite a bit, and I just like his talent a lot more than Barber, because Barber, at this point in his career, is not an every down back, so there's going to be shuffling other backs in that system along the way. I say you go with the safer play out of this bunch and go Steven Jackson.
Studs, duds, and sleepers. We'll start with mine. I already talked about him. I get to talk about him again. Roy Halou, I really like him this week. He was my sleeper last week. That worked out. Now he's moving up to stud status. Again, I think he'll really get involved. And I was happy to see that he did have his first fumble and he still got to keep his job. So that was a big hurdle for Halou. So look for him to get really involved in the passing game as Redskins try to keep up. My dud, Mike Wallace. Only 5 catches in the last 2 weeks. 2 of them do happen to be touchdowns. But Cleveland, the way to beat them is on the ground. They give up about 150 yards rushing a game. Look for the Steelers to control that game with the run. I really don't think they're going to pass that much. And my sleeper, Damian Williams, I haven't picked him as a sleeper yet. I think Tennessee gets down early. Nate Washington's banged up. Williams has been a big part of that offense, leading receiver in most of the games over the last 6 weeks. I think they throw a lot to try to keep up with the Saints, and I think Damien Williams has a big one.
All right, my stud is Michael Turner. I know he was really disappointing last week, but this week, great matchup. He's playing Carolina, and they yield the most fantasy points to running backs. I expect a big day out of Turner. You got to start him. My dud is Pierre Garçon. Don't believe the hype of what happened with Dan Orlovsky last week. Listen, he's playing the Ravens this week. Last week, they were getting crushed. He was doing nothing. The Pats went into a prevent defense, and that's where he got all of his points. Don't start him. Don't do anything crazy. And my sleeper is Brent Selleck versus the Miami Dolphins. With Michael Vick back, that really helps Selleck's value. And the reason I did a tight end here is Fred Davis is suspended for getting high. Way to go. Bang up job there for the Redskins. So if you have Fred Davis, clearly you want to cut him. If you have a guy like Owen Daniels or Greg Olsen, they really haven't been doing much as of late either. I like Selleck more than all these guys.
All right, let's move into Mike's picks. His stud is Michael Bush going up against Green Bay. You know, they use Bush a decent amount in the passing game, so look for him to catch some screens. And he can really rack up the passing yards as well. Some of his biggest games this year has been when he's been really involved in the passing game. So he likes Bush this week. His dud, great minds think alike. He's going with the Steelers passing game as well, and Ben Roethlisberger. He's been under 200 yards each of the last 2 games. And again, with the Cleveland matchup, they're probably just going to rely on the run. It just makes more sense. Why not? And his sleeper, Nate Burleson, going up against Minnesota. Minnesota gives up a ton of yards through the air. Stafford looked really great last week. It looks like he's fully recovered from that finger injury. Burleson, sneaky play this week. I actually agree with this one on Michael.
As long as he doesn't do any offensive pass interference.
Oh,
For the love of God, that was killing me.
That was pretty ridiculous. But you got to love a receiver that's just trying to get a little separation.
I guess
you know.
so.
He's just going to have to be a little more discreet about it. But that's it for our Week 14 show. As always, get in the forums if you got any questions. Playoffs.
And Fred Davis, if you got any issues, Dustin made me say it, so beat this guy up. Clearly, that's how it had to get
after me.